It's like first time, nice. Um, it's like something that Jerry Jesper told me. He says, and I never really looked at it like this, but I think I totally agree. He says doing chart work is like meditation for him, and I completely agree because whenever I sit down on my computer and I look at my charts, my mind just forgets everything else that's happening in the
Yeah.
world, especially if I have classical music. My brain just forgets everything else in the world, and all it thinks about are the charts. I don't think there's anything else in this world that I know more of than charts. Okay? I swear. I don't think I know. I think doing charts, studying charts, looking at price action, I think I know more about this than anything else in my life because of the amount of time that I spent. So it's great, when you like meditation, when you see the benefits of meditation, it's something that you do because it's enjoyable. So can you imagine if you look at chart work like that, how many hours you could put into doing chart work? On average, how many hours a day do you guys think I do chart work? Just curious to know what you guys think.
At least, at least eight.
Okay, Jason says 8. What do you guys think? Wabi says 8.
At least eight. Could be more.
I think it's 10 or 12.
Ashley 5. Hal 8. You probably do 10 hours. Corey says 9. Um, 25 hours. Boom, my man. Well, look, you know what? You can kind of say, a lot of times when I'm not at my charts, I'm even doing chart work. But I would say officially sitting at my desk, looking at charts, studying charts, probably, I'd say between 10 and 12 hours is correct. Sometimes even more. Depends, because I wake up early, I have breakfast, I have my coffee, I come to my desk and I'm working. And then I break for lunchtime for about half an hour, and then I come back and I work. My kids come home from school, I spend time with them, and then I come back to work, and then I spend time with them again, and then, you know, bedtime and reading stories, and then it's back to work. And then I break from work to spend some time with my wife, and then she goes to bed, and I get back to my computer, and it's back to work until my eyes can't stay open anymore, and then it's bed. And then when I go to bed, I usually listen to an audiobook that has to do with, whatever that will make me a better learner. Like lately, I've been listening to a lot of the great books, which is something that I brought up before, and I know Jason is getting into it now as well. There's a really good book called The Educated Mind, and it's about what we've been talking about so many times about how we were taught to learn in school and how it's not the right way. And when you start to learn what the right way is to learn, you're going to be floored. What do you think, Jason? Have you found
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, for real.
Isn't it ridiculous?
Yeah.
It's it's pretty crazy. So when you learn the right way to learn, let me tell you something. I never. It's amazing how the world works. Okay, it's amazing how the world works. God will always bring in your life what you need for that time in your life, depending on how
Mm-hmm.
much you want it, right? And I never realized that the way I taught myself to read the charts is the same way and the same principles that were taught uh, in the classical way of teaching. You know,
Yeah.
and I never realized that. So when I started to have a passion to read the great books and to learn about the great philosophers and what they taught about life and how a human being reads and learns and how do you know what is true and what is not true and all those sorts of things. When I started to read that, then I started to understand why it was that my mind naturally gravitated to learning how to read charts the way that I was. And I had no education in the proper way to learn. I was taught how to learn the way that everybody else was taught how to learn. But when you spend some time reading these books about the proper way to learn, the proper way to think, it's just really ridiculous. So I've been doing my best to take the principles that I'm learning and applying them to what we're doing here so that you guys can understand. So, you know, one of the concepts that we talk about a lot is, like, for instance, what we did with this situation here with drawing that demand zone. Because again, if you don't have a textbook to tell you what's right and wrong, I mean, there is no textbook that tells you what's the right analysis and what's the wrong analysis. The market is the market. Whether if you're going to figure something out if you're going to figure something out or not, that's up to you. Nobody's drawing a diagram of how the market works for you to understand. So if you came to the market without a textbook of how it works, you have to figure it out. So just like Jim Simons, the guy that we were talking about the other day, one of the greatest investors of all time, he's making 66% on average since the 80s. Why is that? Because he created algorithms to make sense of the market. So the same thing we can do. We're not using algorithms, but we're using our mind, and the mind is just as powerful. Although you can't remember so many things, but you'd be surprised what you can remember when you can actually write things down in a journal.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're looking at the market to help substantiate or to help validate our knowledge. So one thing you'll get to learn when you read the great books, when you read about how to actually learn, one of the things that they will teach you is the importance of growing your understanding as you're learning a subject. Because, you know, we all have a radar around us, right? Like, let me show you a quick diagram. I know this is getting off topic, but this is all about what we're doing here. Okay, so let's say that this is you. The blue dot, that's you. Okay, and everything you know about the markets fits within this green circle. That's everything you know. So when you think about your potential, when you think about what could your future be in trading, all you can think about is what's here up until these boundaries. That's it. That's all you know. When you think about supply and demand, this is all you know. So when you start journaling the video lessons and you're writing down what I'm saying, first of all, you don't know me, you don't know my language, you don't know my vocabulary, you don't know what I mean when I'm talking, you're not in my head, you don't have my experience, so it's impossible for you to really grasp everything I'm saying. That's number one. But the fact that you're there listening, that's your first step. So you listen and you write down, I think this is what the guy's talking about. And now you're putting it into your own words. So now there's a transformation of information from my lips to your ears, through your mind, down into a piece of paper. So now you're breaking it down the way that you perceive things. So just by you doing that, you're starting to own that knowledge. It's starting to become yours. But it's not truly yours because I just told it to you, and all you did was write it down. So it's not really yours yet. To make it yours, you need to start applying what you wrote down to what you're seeing on the charts. So when you start to do that, and you start to apply what you wrote down from the knowledge that you gained from what I told you, then your circle starts to grow a little bit larger. Then you start to say, oh, I understand why the zones have to be drawn like that. Oh, I understand why the trend lines have to be done like that. And it's because you figured it out. Because of what you wrote in your journal, you start to realize these things. So now this is your knowledge. This is how much you start to know about the charts. And this first level of understanding, let's say it's circle one, can only provide you with surface level answers to the charts. Let's say level one type of information, level one type of knowledge from the charts. The charts can provide you with so much information, okay? Let's say there are 100 levels of information that the charts can provide you. 100 levels, okay? And there's more than that. I mean, it's probably infinite, okay, if you really think about it. Just like how many things in the world can you learn? 100 things? No, you could learn a billion things. There's so many things to learn, right? But so let's break it down like this. Let's say the chart can give you 100 things. It can teach you 100 things. And those 100 things, once you know those 100 things, you're a master trader. You can get in at price reversals. You can get out exactly before price starts to drop. You know where to put your stop losses. They never get hit. You just always are dead on with your analysis. Price always moves according to what your analysis said it was going to do. And the reason why you know this is because you've achieved those 100 levels of knowledge. Okay. But when you first become a member, you're only at level 1. So that knowledge of level 1, what it's going to allow you to see are some zones, some obvious trend lines, and some zones that break those trend lines. But that's good enough, because now when you draw a zone that breaks a trend line, it actually produces a zone, and then if you follow that zone in the future, it'll produce a supply or demand zone that ends up removing it. So now that one bit of knowledge provides you access to another bit of knowledge, which is a zone that removed the zone that you originally had. Okay, so then you participate in another classroom session like we did today. And how many bits of nuggets did we speak about today? I made note of one that I need to make a video lesson on, because this is extremely important. Because like I was showing you, Hal was applying one concept, but in the wrong place. So his mind was saying, oh, okay, so apply this concept so that I can see the difference between basing and a move away from basing, and then I'll use that move away from basing as the move away I need to validate this trend line. So the brain was thinking along the right tracks, but using it in the wrong context. Okay, so that is important information. If you journal that and you put it into your own writing and you make sense of it, through your own process, there's no way I could ever give you that information. There's no way. We could talk about it, but the only way you're going to know it is after this classroom session. If you sit down with your journal, and when this session is uploaded, you watch what we said 3, 4, 5 times, and you break it down into your own words, into your own meaning, and then you write it down. And that way, when you come across other scenarios like that, you say, okay, I remember what I wrote down. Should I apply that here or should I not? And then if you think you should, draw a trend line and then put a question mark next to it. Send me an email. Hey, Kev, what do you think about this? Is it okay? Is it not okay? And then based on the answer, we can discuss it. And then it's going to give you more knowledge. So when you start journaling after the classroom sessions and you start realizing more, then you get to ring number 2. So now that perimeter, that radar that emits off of your brain, that knowledge base grows. So what you're capable of understanding when you're at level 2 is a lot more from the charts, because now you can use the knowledge of one thing. If you know something very, very well, then you can use the knowledge that you have of that one thing to validate what that one thing is eventually going to show you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
This is the very core of what we're doing, right? How do we learn how to draw zones? How did we learn about trend lines and when to draw them and when to not draw them? The only way we knew is because when you did it the wrong way, it produced bad results. When you did it the right way, it produced good results. So then you start to realize what the right way is and what the wrong way is. So trading is the exact same way, exactly the same way. The more you journal, the more you chart, the more you work, the more rings get produced. And then when you get to level 3, your chart works even better. And then what you know to be true in level 3 will produce even more knowledge. So the more you know, the more lessons you'll be taught. And the more lessons you'll be taught, the more you'll know. And then the more you know, the more lessons you'll be taught, and then the more lessons you were taught, the more you know. And it just replicates over and over and over and over. So the reason why I spend 10, 12 hours a day studying charts is because I am obsessed with these rings. I am obsessed because the more rings I get, the more I realize, the better my analysis, the better my returns, the more confidence I have, everything grows. The faster I learn, the more I understand. So it's a win-win situation for me. And not just that, but here's the beauty. You don't have to just be studying charts to grow these rings of knowledge. You spend time reading books, like classic books on education, on how to learn, on how to read, on how to understand, on how to be a better person, about morals, etiquette, these things about your character, how to be a better human being. Believe it or not, when you spend your time focused on those type of things, they're going to expand these rings when it comes to even trading. Okay?
Mhm.
Very, very true. I tell you that right now, because there's things I've been learning over the last 6, 7 months that I sit back after reading it and I'm like, wait a minute. You can apply that very same concept to how I learn about trading, how the markets work, and how I can, extract information from the markets. It's really an incredible thing. So uh, I really want you guys to understand that, because I think that's a really big point that a lot of people are missing when it comes to learning how to trade. Everybody is so focused on where to draw the trend line, where to draw the support and resistance, and they're so focused on that they're missing the grand point. They're missing the big thing, the big experience that they could be. It's just like most people go through life, yada yada yada, doing very little. They were taught the wrong way to learn, and they've never been curious to find out if there was even a better way to learn. So they just go about their life examining things, observing things the way that they were taught in school, and they never get past that level of learning from a sixth grade level, right? That's basically what it is. Sixth grade level is where school stops you. Sixth grade, level of reading is where they stop you. They don't advance you past that. And so when you read an article, it's the same way. Your comprehension is very low. When you watch the news, your comprehension is very low. And the same thing is going to happen when you watch the video lessons here at the school. Your comprehension is going to be very low, and it's going to slow your process of learning. So that's why I'm really pushing towards this, is that if you have leisure time, if you can afford leisure time, spend your time reading these books, educate yourself on the way of learning, the true way of learning. There's lots of books about it. If you want to know more about it, you email me. Maybe I'll even put a post in the forum about the books that you can get to read, because they'll change your life. They honestly will change your life. So really pay attention to that, okay?
Yeah.
Because like I said, the point I was trying to make, you can go through life with this very, very limited way of seeing the world, absorbing information, and you could become successful. You can become financially successful, or doing pretty well. Your health can be pretty well. You could have a good character. A lot of people can like you. You could have a decent amount of friends, and a loving wife, and kids that love you. You can end up living a good life. But if you're capable of doing that with very little resources, can you imagine what you're capable of when you actually have been given the ability to train your mind to use it at its fuller potential?
Mm.
Imagine how good you'll be.
Yeah.
So apply that to trading. It's the exact same thing. If you don't pay attention to these things, you're going to be a half good trader. If you pay attention to these things, and you see the lessons that they teach you, and you apply it to your trading, you're going to be an amazing trader. That's what it comes down to. Okay, anyways, uh, so take it from me. You don't have to take it from me, but do what you want. But next summer, if you have some free time, or even this winter, I mean, whoever's living in cold territories, I mean, stay inside, light up a fire, read a book. You'll see for yourself. Don't have to take my word for it. But I'm telling you something that most people are not going to tell you, okay? So, have you started reading that book, Jason?
Yeah. Since
What
it's
do you think
since
about it?
It's very informative, Kev. Since you mentioned the book, I started reading it. I
Yeah,
haven't
good.
purchased a hard copy yet,
Yeah,
but so far,
yeah,
that's
and
why when I
that's
read
the thing.
the Aruja report, last Aruja report,
Hmm.
I understand exactly what you meant as to how to review the lessons.
Exactly.
Because I actually started before I even mentioned about noting the time in the lessons where things shock out to you. I actually started that process, and when I read it, I just smiled because I was like, yes, on the right track.
Yeah, yeah. So, and you see the power in doing that, right?
Yeah.
And that's just the thing too. I mean, if you don't want to spend the extra money, do a search for these books. Type in the name of the book and type in PDF on Google, and you'll find them somewhere. It's just amazing what the internet has to offer us. All the information you could possibly want, all the great books, they're on the internet. They're for free. I mean, you don't even have to buy them. The thing is, I don't like reading off my computer, so I'd rather
Yeah.
purchase a real book. But before you get into reading the great books, just get the books that teach you about learning. Okay,
Mhm.
and that one that I was talking about, the educated mind. That's a good place to start.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see if there is any questions. Which book do you most recommend? I would say the Well-Educated Mind is a good one. She breaks down, how to gain knowledge from a book, because if you're not in school and you don't have a teacher to actually, break things down for you, how do you learn? The only way to learn is for books. And if you research history, you watch any movie, any time period movie that takes place in the 1800s, 1700s, 1600s, any well-to-do family, you think about it, okay? Any well-to-do family back in the day, you'll recognize one thing. Number one, they didn't physically work jobs, okay? Because they owned land and they owned companies that produced an income, all right? That's the first thing. So they had what was extremely important to them, which made up their life, which was they had leisure time. Leisure time is one of the most important things that we're supposed to have. In our leisure time, that's when we're supposed to learn. That's when we're supposed to have our hobbies. Doing these things and applying ourselves in this way is what makes us a better human being. But, nowadays you need two jobs to get by, and that steals you of your leisure time. Well, why do you think that is? Well, it's because it's done like that on purpose. So these people back in the day, they had libraries and they had leisure time. These
Hmm.
wealthy, well-to-do families, so those are the two things they had: leisure and libraries. And in their libraries, they had these books, and they knew how to read them to extract the information that they needed from them. And so a book like Well-Educated Mind takes you through the process of how do you read a book and how do you extract information from it? Because what we mostly do is we read, we skim through the words, and all we're doing is trying to remember what we read, because that's what we were taught in school, right?
Yeah.
Read the
Yeah.
textbooks, take notes, here's the test, let's see how well you remembered what you read.
Hmm.
And that's the total wrong way to read. So, and when you watch the video lessons, you'll do the same thing. You'll watch the video lessons, you'll take notes exactly what I said, and you're going to think that you're actually learning, when that's not really learning. You're just writing down exactly what I said, and that's not what I'm telling you to do. I'm telling you to write it into your own words, and then ask yourself, why did he say that? Why in that context is it like that? And that's why journaling, what you see in these classroom sessions, are so important, because we're taking the concepts and principles from the lessons, we're applying it to real charts, real price action, and we're seeing when we should apply it, when we shouldn't. And then I'm giving you an explanation as to when we should and when we shouldn't. And then you journal down. He said we shouldn't use it in this case. Why is that? Ask yourself, why is that? And then when you look at the charts, your mind will say, remember you asked yourself in the journal, why is that? Well, here's one of those situations. Let's investigate for ourselves and see why is that. And then you investigating, you'll learn. Why do I know what I know so well? And why am I so confident in what I know? Because I had nobody to help me learn these things, I had to figure it out myself. And the only way I could figure it out myself is to say, why is it like that? Let me find out why. And when I journaled these things, believe it or not, when I spent time looking at charts, my mind would say, hey, there's that situation again on the charts. Remember you journaled about that like 2 months ago? Yeah, let's take a look at it now. Let's go back in my journal, read my notes, see what I wrote about then. Now let's look at this situation and let's apply. Does it apply to this situation? If not, why not? So this is how I learned. All right.